What's up YouTube? Jeff back again from DopeTechDaily.com. Today I'm bringing you guys my top 5 Android flagship phones of the first half of 2017. These are my mid-year smartphone awards for Android. Now we're going to start from the 5th phone and go down to the first one. You can probably infer from the phone I'm holding here first. Number 5 phone on my list is the OnePlus 5. Now you're probably asking yourself, why this made my top 5 list when I just made a video about the problems with this phone. Well, yes, there are some problems with this phone, namely not having any dust or water resistance in my opinion, the jelly scrolling effect, which again, I haven't actually been bothered by too much. I have did some further testing, 60 frames per second, slowed it down a little bit, and there is a little bit of a jelly effect there. But it's not something that bothers me a lot, but it does bother a lot of other people, and OnePlus hasn't really owned up to that being an issue or offered any kind of fix, which I find kind of annoying. In addition to that, the camera on this phone, while it's pretty good, it's not in the top tier class with some other phones like the Pixel, Galaxy S8, etc. So even though there are a couple problems, there are also a lot of positives with the OnePlus 5. Aside from the Pixel, this is the smoothest Android experience you're going to get in terms of opening apps quickly. Memory management, this thing has a ton of memory. You've got 8 gigs of RAM on this guy, 128 gigs of storage on the top end model. Fingerprint sensor is lightning fast. You've got top of the line specs on the inside. You got the Snapdragon 835, very good gaming performance. If you want to blow people away with benchmarks, this is the phone to do it with. Also, Oxygen OS is just the best third-party OEM experience in Android. The level of customization and tweaks you can do are fantastic. So if you're really a software person and you don't want a Pixel, you can't go wrong with the OnePlus 5, and that's why it ranks in at number 5 on my top 5 of 2017. The number 4 phone on my top 5 list is the LG G6. I feel like the LG G6 has been forgotten a little bit since some of these newer phones have come out like the U11, the OnePlus 5, and then also, of course, the G6 came out right before the Galaxy S8 and the S8 Plus, so it got a little bit lost in the shuffle. But the G6 is an amazing phone. LG really went back to the drawing board this year. They improved their design. The camera is better overall. You've got better processing. In certain lighting conditions, the main camera can compete with the S8 and the Pixel XL. In my opinion, it's on par with the OnePlus 5 in all situations and even exceeds the camera on there. I personally like the wide-angle dual lens a little bit better than the one we see on the iPhone and the OnePlus 5. The main places where the G6 is lacking that failed to move it up further in the list, the battery life is not that great on this phone. It's degraded over time, which I've noticed on a lot of my LG phones. I'm lucky to get 4 hours screen on time on average, usually between 3.5 to 4 hours screen on time if I'm using this in my regular daily usage. Also, this particular phone, the software experience, LG still needs to improve it. They cleaned up some of the settings, but the main settings menu and also just some of the animations and the UI is not as smooth as it could be. You guys can see I'm running Action Launcher on here, which I do on a lot of my phones, but the stock software experience is not great, so LG could really improve on that. Also, compared to some of the other screens out there, the viewing angles aren't necessarily the best. That's mainly a product of LCD versus AMOLED. It is one of the best LCD panels out there that you're going to get today. But those are the things that sort of left it from moving up in my rotation. Everything else about this phone, though, I really like, and that brings it in at number 4 on my top 5 list. The next phone on my top 5 list, and people are going to find this surprising, is the Pixel XL. So the Pixel XL, I made a video a couple of months ago, maybe a month ago, talking about how this is still my main phone, my daily driver, and it is. But this top 5 list is about what phones I would recommend to people to buy today, not necessarily what's my main phone or what's my daily driver. Those are different things. And the Pixel XL, while it's still my main phone, I've got my main phone number, my main SIM inside this phone, it's not the best phone for the average consumer and not something I would recommend to my friends and family to be the first choice to purchase today. Some positives about this phone: I still believe it has the best camera on Android. That's mainly because of the software processing. The HDR Plus that Google bakes into the Pixel is phenomenal. Fingerprint scanner is great. The display on this is pretty good. It's not the best panel you're going to see, but it is fairly bright. Decent viewing angles outside. It's much better, in my opinion, than the display on the OnePlus 5 and slightly better than the one on the G6, which moves it into third place. The lack of water resistance on this particular phone is very annoying to me. Also, another thing that brings it down a notch is just the design of this phone. It's not an attractive looking phone, and while that's not the biggest deal in the world to me, for the average consumer when they're buying a phone, especially in 2017 when you've got all these bezel-less phones coming out, that is a big deal. The Pixel does not look particularly attractive. I'm assuming Google's going to update that this year, maybe slim down the bezels, etc. Of course, the other big thing is the Pixel now has an outdated processor in it. Other phones are out there running around with the Snapdragon 835, so you're not going to get quite the top-end benchmark performance, gaming performance, if that's important to you. So those are some considerations that move it down a notch, but still the best overall software experience you're going to get in Android. And when it comes to things like touch latency and any sort of lag, those are completely absent here. You get that pure Google experience and also the best camera. Those two things combine to make this still a very attractive option and brings in at number 3 on my top 5 list for 2017 so far. So now we're getting into number 1 and number 2. I know a lot of people probably thought the Pixel was going to be in that number 1 or number 2 spot. So number 2 might be a surprise to you guys. At number 2, we have the HTC U11. Now, I was wrong about this phone in a lot of ways, and I'm willing to admit it. When the phone was first announced, I doubted HTC in a lot of respect. I wasn't sure they were going to be able to deliver on a lot of their promises. The phone looked very pretty, but it looked very similar to the HTC Ultra, which was a big disappointment earlier in the year that I reviewed. But a lot of great things about this phone. The display is bright, very colorful, good viewing angles outside. The camera, they got that 90 DxO mark score, which I was skeptical of. But in my testing, I've been very impressed with the camera overall. The camera on this particular phone does deliver in a big way. The one place where it does come up a little short, in my opinion, is with the shutter speed. So when you take photos on here, it's a little slower than the Galaxy S8 and the Pixel XL, but it's not too much slower. Just a little bit slower if you're using those other phones, you notice. But taking night photos, it's very good in low light. I was very impressed overall with the HTC U11 in my testing for the camera. Also, software experience on here. HTC's always been pretty good at software. I've been a pretty big fan. They keep pretty close to stock Android with some small customizations. Overall, everything looks good, feels good. Really no lag on this phone at all. They finally came with some form of water resistance as well. A very beautiful phone. The speaker's very good compared to some of the other flagships out there. A lot of really nice looking color options. The build is on point. The only thing that's really missing for me is I don't really like the fact that they omitted the headphone jack this year. That's kind of a huge downside. But everything else about this phone, the audio quality, the camera, the display, the performance, HTC really went all out. And EdgeSense is also a very useful feature, like I said. I thought originally that it was going to be a bust, but for things like turning on your flashlight just as a utility, I found it very useful to map EdgeSense to some of those things, and also for using the camera. It's a very useful way to just take a quick photo if you pull your phone right out of the pocket. All right, so that's number 2 on my top 5 list of 2017. You guys can probably infer from that which phone is number 1, and I know there's going to be a lot of love and a lot of hate. Samsung fans are going to love it. Everybody else will probably hate me for it. The Galaxy S8 and the S8 Plus, the number 1 phone in my top 5 so far. A lot of reasons. First of all, this phone is a great value right now. Samsung running a lot of deals where you can get some money off here in the US. Also, the prices are going down for the international model. You can pick up a Galaxy S8 probably like $600 and a Galaxy S8 Plus for like $650 if you really look. That's very close to other phones that are coming out now, and the OnePlus 5, the top tier model, is just over $500, so it's not that much more money. You get great looking display, in my opinion, the best AMOLED display in the business. The camera on this phone is amazing. The HTC U11 is probably a little better sometimes in low light, but the camera on here is so much faster with the shutter speed that sometimes you capture some moments that you might not otherwise capture on the HTC U11. Samsung has improved the software experience this year. Again, I'm running Action Launcher because this is one of my main phones, but Samsung has improved the software experience. You got a lot of cool theme options, including this one that I'm rocking right here. I did a video on it if you guys want to check it out. This is the Color Dust theme. The fingerprint scanner is the main problem I have with this phone. The fingerprint scanner, that placement, I'm not a huge fan, but you've got the iris scanner and facial recognition, which seems to work for most people just fine. So that's not really a huge issue. Bixby seems to be better value than people think, even though it's come a little late. I've been playing around with the Bixby Voice beta. It's actually pretty good for getting things done on your phone. It's different than Google Assistant and Alexa. So that's a little bit different overall idea, but it's definitely working for them. And I think that Samsung really baked a product together here that the average consumer is going to enjoy. The build quality, the overall design and look of the phone. Also, you got to think about availability of accessories when it comes to buying a flagship phone you're going to use for 2 years. This phone has 10 times more accessories than all the other Android phones that I've talked about today, just because Samsung is such a huge manufacturer. So if I was recommending a phone to buy today to the average consumer, I'd have to go with the Galaxy S8 or the S8 Plus, depending on your size preference. All right, guys, so those are my top 5 Android phones of 2017 so far. This is, of course, just the first half of 2017, so we're not done by any stretch of the imagination. We got a lot of phones to look at in the second half. We'll be looking at the Essential phone. We'll be looking at the Galaxy Note 8. We'll be looking at the Pixel 2. All that stuff will be coming up, and of course, I will do a final video on the true top 5 in December at the very end of the year. All right, guys, so let me know what you think about my top 5 list. Leave a comment below if you agree or disagree. Find me at dopetechdaily.com, Google+, Instagram, and Twitter at the links in the description. Please like and subscribe if you guys enjoy my content so I can make future videos like this. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks a lot for watching.